everyone. Thank you so much for joining this week. I have a real special guest. I think a lot of people probably know this person, have seen him somewhere on YouTube or Instagram or wherever. His name is Brian, also known as Cajun Cardboard. First of all, thank you so much for coming on, Brian, especially during this holiday season. I know you got a lot going on, as does a lot of people. So thank you for taking the time to do this interview.
Of course, at your service. Talk cards all day, every day, anytime. Any cards I have, cards I don't have, whatever you want, man. I'm at your disposal today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, let's just start off by talking about your beginnings in this hobby, how you kind of got started. What was it that really got you hooked, and what are some of the things you're passionate about?
Geez, let's see. So I like to tell people I have, everybody's got their origin story, right? Or how they got into the hobby. I actually got into the hobby, out of the hobby, into the hobby, out of the hobby, and then back into the hobby. And so I'll make it as brief as possible. Grew up collecting as a kid. I'm 48 years old, so I grew up. I probably started collecting around 79 or 80, 1979 or 1980, believe it or not. I was a little kid following my older cousin to the flea market. And they had, long row boxes, and I would try to put together baseball card sets. I remember trying to put Cincinnati Reds sets together since I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. So team set collecting was kind of in my genes from the jump. And baseball cards were a passion of mine as a kid from probably 1979 or 80 all the way through 1990. So almost a full decade. And pure collecting, no investment, aspect to it, just purely investing. Then high school and college got in the way, and so I disappeared for about 8 years. Got back in around 1997, 98, somewhere around there, and was reintroduced to cards. And man, did a lot change. My friend introduced me to Topps Chrome basketball. And back in the 80s, it was just all baseball for me. And I've always been basketball first guy. I played sports, played basketball all my life. So got back in '98, collected through 2004, and then started having children. My family started to grow. We moved, from Houston back to Baton Rouge. I graduated law school. And, money got a little bit tight as the family was growing, but I was a brand new attorney. And so put it on the shelf for another, let's see, about 10 or 11 years. Got back in around 2015, 2016. And the reason I got back in was Giannis Antetokounmpo. I watched him. I drafted him in my fantasy basketball league. I thought I saw glimpses of some, unique skill set stuff, and decided to just buy as much as I could. And that was from an investment aspect. I jumped in, I educated myself on the hobby, and I made some really stupid mistakes. But luckily back then, cards didn't cost what they cost now. And so my mistakes were not too penalizing financially. And, Giannis started a trend of buying raw, grading, and then selling. Buying raw, grading, and selling. And I did it with Giannis and De'Aaron Fox and Ben Simmons and Jaylen Brown and Donovan Mitchell and Doncic, and did it all the way through Anthony Simons and Kevin Porter, where I'm still sort of in the middle of those. And then fell in love with Jordan. And then once I fell in love with Jordan cards, that's a whole nother story.
So I mean, I would say for sure investing in Giannis when you did overall was very smart, even if you did make some mistakes during that time period. But I mean, it pretty easy if you just held on to at least a handful of his cards for several years, and then even his base stuff, and just kind of, picking the right time to go ahead, potentially move from certain ones of those. I've seen some of your Giannis ones you have currently. Are some of the ones that you have currently some of the ones you bought back in the day, or some of those you grew into those with your buying and selling of some of the other ones that you had?
Hell no, Kurt. So when I got in, I vividly remember I got on eBay, and the first thing I looked for was 2013 Topps Chrome Giannis, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know Topps Chrome was what brought me back in the late '90s, and so I was like, well, I got a bunch of Topps Chrome LeBrons. I'm just going to go buy a bunch of Topps Chrome Giannis. Well, soon, of course, in a very short order, I found out there's no such thing as Topps Chrome anymore, and so I stumbled into Prism, but I had no clue what I was doing, Kurt. And so I probably bought 400, 500 base Giannis Prism, SP Authentic, Fleer Retro, hoops, low end stuff. I remember seeing a Prism Silver, and I was thinking to myself, man, I'm not going to pay $40 for a Giannis card. That's crazy. Why would I do that? I'm just going to buy these base for like 8, 12, 12 to 8 to 12 bucks, something like that. So I just started clicking buy it now, Kurt. I bought a ton of base stuff. And back then it was okay because you can get away with it, right? Because it was pre-boom. And so, those were the mistakes I made. I chose the right player, and I did great, right? Just because of timing, dumb luck. Man, I would have liked to have bought a bunch of greens and silvers and maybe a gold or some autographs and stuff like that. But I didn't. But I've added those, through the years because Giannis is my favorite player on my favorite team. And so I've kind of, stepped up my Giannis game since those times. I kind of took that Giannis money and turned it into better, more relevant, scarcer Giannis cards.
Awesome. So how would you kind of best describe your collection as it stands right now?
I'll start with 99% basketball, 1% soccer.
Okay.
And then as far as players that I actually PC and have a sizable collection of, in order, it's Jordan, then LeBron, then Giannis, then Shaq and Lillard. And so those are my primary PCs. I'm also a set collector by nature, so I've collected numerous 1986 Fleer sets. I've collected some 1990s insert sets as well in high grade. I'm currently collecting the 2014 Prism World Cup Soccer base set in PSA 10 and the 2014 Prism autograph set in as high a grade as I can get. Some of those are Pop Zero, so I'm trying to put that set together as well. I can't shake that bug, Kurt. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is. I tell myself I'm not going to collect sets, and then I find myself trying to collect sets, and I just can't stop it. So I'm just going to have to live with it. But that's kind of my collection in a nutshell. But it is extremely basketball heavy, and I don't think that's going to change too much. Soccer might be 2% one day, but it's never going to overtake basketball. And then within basketball, Jordan is, I think I just did a video on this. Jordan, I think, is about 75% of the value of my whole collection.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, you're talking to the basketball card nerd, so I'm happy to hear that you've had a deep focus in basketball throughout your entire life, pretty much, it sounds like. So, all power to you. Of course, I grew up in the 90s myself, and so, I certainly have a love for 90s cards still and for 90s inserts. I've kind of finally shifted away actually from 90s and other stuff that I had collected over the years into even older stuff, vintage, signed rookies and signed 61 sets and things like that. I had a lot of the 90s stuff for a while. I had a lot of the Flair Showcase Legacy cards from 96 because that was one of my favorites sets during that time period. I noticed you had a few of those yourself at one point. And it's hard not to love the innovations that they did during that time period and everything from those numbered paralleled cards from the Flair products to obviously like PMGs and jambalayas and things like that. They were just amazing, really innovative, really got people, I think, a new love and passion for finding rare and chase stuff. I know that was something that you have collected over the years as well, of course. So talk about maybe some of the things that you've had in your possession from that time period that are some of your favorites and some of your love for that era.
Yeah, so I'm jealous of you. I didn't collect, right, from 1991 all the way until, maybe 98, 99 is kind of when I got back in. So I missed the just absolute golden years of basketball. So I'm making up for lost time, right? I'm seeing some of these cards for the first time ever, and you're seeing cards you're like, oh, I wish I'd have had that back then, and now you can pick them up. They mean something to you before you got them, but for me, I'm literally starting at ground zero and kind of educating myself. And I started on the Jordan stuff and the 90s stuff about 2.5 years ago, and then went and pushed kind of heavy into that area. So, I talk about it on my Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel. Metal Universe is kind of my favorite set from the 90s. And so hyper focused on the inserts and parallels from those sets, which are not cheap and high grade. And so, every Jordan insert tells a story, even the low end stuff. And I talk about it all the time on Instagram. I'll post it, and sometimes I'll post a $65, PSA 8 Jordan insert that's just not crazy rare, but Kurt, the beauty of the 90s is that like you can see a card and immediately know what that card is. Like if you showed it to me across the room, I'd immediately know what it is. It's not like 2021 where you've got to look at it and say, well, is that blue shimmer? Is that blue? Is it blue ice? Is it blue fast break? Is it blue choice? I can't tell. It's, in the 90s, if you got a jambalaya in your hand, you know it. If you've got a hot shots in your hand, you know it. If you got a PMG red, you know it. You could show me 50 yards away and I'd know what that card is. And that's just what made the 90s so special, is that like the designers, they just kept pushing the envelope and everything was a little more outrageous, a little different. And then die cuts appeared and then serial numbered stuff appeared. And it's just beautiful. And once I fell in love with the 90s, I just never turned back, man.
Oh yeah. Well, you can't go wrong with it. Like I said, I think if you ask over 90% of people who collect basketball, even people who collect baseball and football as well, of course, too, like they will tell you, like that's just, there's no beating the 90s, especially that during that time period from like 96 to 2000 or whatever, where, I think, like I said, I mean, the stuff that they did with some of those inserts and parallels and refractors and things of that nature, I think everyone who's a collector now owe something to that time period. Even if you are just like an autograph collector or patch collector, obviously those started coming around during that same time period. And I think what was great about having the multiple companies doing all the sports during that time period is each company had sort of their own strong suit. Like Upper Deck really was innovative with the autographs and with the patch cards, and Fleer was really innovative with the inserts, and Topps was innovative with their chrome and refractor products, and obviously just with their base stuff still, just their fantastic photography and things of that nature. So that's what it was, I think, for everyone that either grew up or still has, getting back into the hobby now, still has a point of reference of where a lot of popular cards come from now. They all pretty much came from that time period in the mid 90s.
Look, Kurt, it's not just basketball either. I'm all basketball, but it's baseball, it's hockey, it's football. The 90s decade produced the first refractor, the first die cut, the first autograph, the first serial number, the first embossed, the first atomic refractor. I'm sure I'm forgetting some others. The first front and back refractor cards, the first holograms. I mean, you can go down the list. Damn near everything that was the first of anything happened somewhere between 1991 and like 1998. Isn't that wild to think about? And it's not just basketball. It's other sports as well. I know 90s baseball inserts are starting to pick up. At least I'm noticing that from afar. I don't do it, but I see it. And I see more Griffey, more rare Griffies from the 90s and different stuff like that. So, it's a fascinating decade for collecting for sure.
Yeah, and you're right. It seemed like it all happened within like a 4 or 5 year time period, but so much happened and so much great stuff. And it stoked a passion for me, and it stoked a passion for a lot of people. So there are a couple cards I have to ask about in particular. One, do you still have your Jordan red PMG?
Yep.
All right. So is there a good story behind the Jordan 1997 red PMG that you have? Because obviously that is probably a top grail card for a lot of people.
So, it's my best card. So, let's start at the top. We can only go down from here. Like that's the best I got, right? I wish I had a great story about finding it at a garage sale or, some kind of street brawl where I won it in a bar fight or something. But it was a real simple story. I was on a soccer trip. I had been pooling funds for a while, and that card, since I discovered Jordan, probably in very like mid 2019 is where I first started watching Cardboard Chronicles and House of Jordans and watching some. There used to be a guy called PSA Collector on YouTube, and he would do like the top Jordan cards. That's when I kind of fell in love with it. And then during COVID, of course, Last Dance came along, and then it was all hell broke loose. But I knew from the jump, the PMG Red, I knew I couldn't afford the green. And I knew at that time the PMG Red was going to be the mountaintop. Like that's the one card. And I know there are other bigger Jordan cards, but that card for me, that was my priority. And so I had pulled funds for a good bit, and I was on a soccer trip for when my daughters played travel soccer, and we were in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was on Golden Auctions, if I recall, and I was asleep when I won it. So that's the story. I put in my max bid, and I said, "Here's what I am willing to pay. This is my number. I don't care about extended bidding. I'm not going one penny over it. I'm not. If I win it, I win it. If I lose it, I lose it. This is what I'm willing to pay." And it's a BGS 8 copy.
Yep.
And I won it. I woke up the next morning. I was going down to the lobby to get my coffee, and I was like, "That's a big card. I need to move some money around and make this happen." So that's the boring story. Is I was asleep when I won the card.
No. I mean, congratulations for one, and two. I mean, I hope people realize still what a BGS 8 means for those cards, because those PMG cards are just notoriously tough to grade. They have all sorts of surface problems throughout the years, especially since, it was a set obviously in 97, and a lot of people didn't send them off obviously to be graded because there's only like one or two grading companies back then, and not very many people did it. And so, yeah. So a lot of the PMGs that you see come up for sale nowadays are usually around the 6 to 7 range. So to find a BGS 8, I'm not going to ask how much you paid for it, but I mean, the fact that you got it for the amount that you're willing to pay for it is incredible. And when did you get it? Was it 2020? Was it somewhere around there? Was it?
This would have been summer of. No, this would have been like maybe March of 2021, I think, if I have my years right. I think that's about right. So
that's still during the peak, of prices and everything. So
I paid for it. I didn't steal it. but there's been some good comps since then. So I feel real comfortable where I'm at from an investor standpoint. And again, it's not going anywhere, man. I'm not moving that card for any number, but I'm okay. I got it for I would say a fair price, if not good price.
Well, and that wasn't the only one. You had a good collection of red PMGs from that year, from 97, correct? Going on for a while.
I did. Kurt, I was chasing the set. And so I think there was probably 3 sets in the world, maybe 4. And I was chasing the set, and I had 130 red PMGs. Those are precious metal gems from the 1997 Metal Universe set. 93 of them were unique. So I had 93 out of the 123. And then I had a bunch of duplicates that I had acquired in order to trade, just in case I found one and we can make trades or whatever. And Kurt, that was a fascinating expensive whirlwind of a journey that took me all over the world. I remember buying cards from Austria, from Sweden, from Australia, from all parts of Asia, Chicago, Seattle. It took me all over the world, and it was a huge lesson in the hobby. I learned a ton about how to communicate, met some really good friends, some really high-end collectors, learned a lot about it, and pushed real hard into it for about 8 months, and then found somebody who wanted to buy me out of the set at a premium. And so I made the decision, take them, let's go. And it was an unbelievably efficient, smooth, private deal that happened in stages over the course of about 4 weeks. Where somebody just cashed me out at a price I couldn't refuse. And so I put that to the side. Now I own 3 PMG Reds. Is all I own now is just 3 of them. I had 130, and now I got 3. So.
What is it? The Jordan, the Duncan, and the Kobe? Are those the 3 you still have?
You got it. The Jordan, the Duncan, and the Kobe. Those are the 3 I still have.
Those are 3 good ones to hold on to. The Duncan, obviously, that's from his rookie year. That's a fantastic one, obviously. And Kobe is Kobe as well. I mean, yeah, that definitely ranks up there, obviously, for all Kobe collectors to have one of those in their collection one day. So yeah, that's amazing that you have those 3 and that you built up such an impressive collection from that set. Because yeah, like you said, not a collection for the faint of heart. It's not just about the money, but also the amount of talking and negotiating and reaching out to people you've never met before that, like you said, live across the world, because those cards are popular just about everywhere. you know,
You,
from the Philippines down to Australia to all over Europe.
everywhere,
Yeah,
man.
that
You
must have been
can't do
crazy.
it. You cannot do it without having a network in social media. I mean, you got to have it. There's just no way you can just buy them off auctions and get this done. It's about making friends in the hobby, scratching each other's back. If somebody needs something, you're willing to go out and even go find it if you don't have it. That way you can get that into their possession so they can trade with you. I just can't tell you how many Instagram messages and phone calls took place to get to 93, right? Which is 30 away. I mean, I wasn't exactly,
That's
on the doorstep, but I did have the big ones knocked down.
yeah.
But it's all about IG and communicating and making friends in the hobby and treating people right and being truthful and efficient. And so it was fun, man. I put my whole collection on hold to do that for about 8 to 9 months. So I didn't buy another card for about 9 months other than PMG Reds because that was just that was my passion at the time, and came up a little bit short, but it worked out okay.
That's where I feel like I'm at with my 61 Fleer autograph collection. It's my main focus, and it's really all about the connections you make with people that are into those specific types of cards or specific type of cards from that era. I can find a few decent ones on eBay and other auction sites here and there every so often, but it's really about making those connections and doing small deals with people at first that lead to bigger deals potentially down the road, or just reaching out to people and just talking to them for a couple weeks, just friendly chit chat, and then it might lead to something. You never know, and they might say, you know what, I actually have a couple of things that you might be interested in, and they show you something that you've never seen before, or have been chasing for a long time. You're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you have that. You've just been hiding it this whole time. I feel like that happens a lot with a lot of these really rare things that are truly hard to find. And I always preach to anyone listening, it's like that's how you really build a super impressive collection, is by networking, knowing certain people, and just making deals with them privately, and just knowing how to just make friends in this hobby and make connections,
That you don't know, like you may be communicating with 5 people, none of which have the card that you're looking for, but those 5 people might have big mouths. It might be me you're talking to, right? And so those 5 people talk to 5 people each. That's now 25 people that know Kurt's looking for this, autographed 61 card. And that's how deals get done, man. That I can't tell you how many messages I got from random people just saying, "Hey, I heard you're looking for fill in the blank," and I'm like, damn, yeah, who told you? And then, you connect the dots and vet the people, and then deals get done. Man, I'm fascinated with 61 Fleer is obviously up there. I mean, on the very short list of greatest sets of all time, unquestionably. I love that set. I wish I hadn't sold my Wilt, but I'm going to get back into a good big Wilt at some point because he's my guy. How close are you? Are you trying to collect the in-action photos autographed too? The in-action, all of them?
Yep, all 66 cards. And yeah, that's not an easy one to do. Probably about as hard as your red PMG said you had going for a while.
Harder.
I only have 22 at the moment, so about a third of the way there, obviously. And I'm just going to grind away and see if I can get to a point where I can get some of the really difficult ones, like the 2 Wilts, because you got to get both of them if you're going for the complete set, and that's not easy. Not because they don't come up, but because of how expensive they've gotten over the years. Because everyone wants those Wilts. And there's a lot of like Pop 1, Pop 2s in that set that are really hard to get. I do know where a few of them are located, but it may take some time and some, talking and negotiating before it happens,
That's awesome. That is an iconic set. 57 tops, 61 Fleer, 69 tops, 86 Fleer. Those 4 are special, and a lot of the reason is the big gap, right? It's just huge rookie classes for those cards because, obviously you go from 48 to 57, then 57 to 61. That's 4 years of rookies, and we know 61's got some monster rookies, and then 69 is a full 8 years worth of rookies because they didn't have any cards from 61. Well, no, licensed cards from 62 through 68. And then we all know the story about 86 Fleer, same deal, So those sets are just loaded with rookie cards of all-time legends.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of one of the reasons I focus on 61 Fleer is because It's such a. There were only like 3 total sets that occurred, obviously, before 1969 came around with 69 tops, and so you have this set that has like basically all the Hall of Famers from that time period, and I think the statistics are there are 20 Hall of Famers out of the 44 players in that set.
Jeez.
And like 12 of them are technically their rookie cards because they didn't have one produced before that. So just thinking about how all those guys had such an impact on the game of basketball, not just guys like Bill Russell and Jerry West and all the guys that everyone's familiar with, but just about everybody in that set, from Al Attles to Lenny Wilkins to Larry Costello, just about anyone that you can name in that's
Hall
in
of
that
Famers
set
galore.
has a huge impact just for the game overall. So that's why I fell in love with it, and I focused my collective attention into that set, and just having that historical and personal connection too. When you get something that's that from that long ago that was signed by those players, obviously many of them unfortunately have passed away, and so you almost feel like you're curating basketball history in a way when you do something like that. And at least that's how I feel about it.
Do you have the non-autograph set? Do you have the base set? I mean,
no, I do not. I had several of the base long ago, but those are some of the ones I've traded away to get my hands on some autographed ones. So yeah, I mean, and I've got a few of the big names like Bill Russell autographed, Oscar Robertson, some really hard ones like Tom Gola and Bob Boozer, some of those guys. And Dolph Shays and Bob Pettit, I've got theirs as well. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be a project like your PMGs that's gonna just be my main focus and passion project for a while. I don't know if I'll be able to complete it, but we'll see.
I can. I was gonna say I could have helped you with Pettit. He sits right next to me at the LSU game, so our season tickets are right by each other. And his son's a good friend of mine, so we see Bob often. So he's the easy autograph for me down here. The rest of those guys, no, I can't help you at all on those, unfortunately. But you got Pettit, so you're set.
Yeah. No, it's all good. But let's go back. Well, let's actually talk about the fact that you not only got into being a collector and buying and selling and things of that nature, you started to do your own content creating regarding this hobby. You're on YouTube, obviously. You're on Instagram. What kind of got you wanting to do that, and yeah, just how that started and why it's something that you felt like you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was a gradual process. So I started just being a guy clicking buy it now on a keyboard with eBay, right? When I came back in 2016, 2015, something like that. And it was a game of solitude. It was me, my spreadsheets, my analytical mind, tracking cards up, down, what I paid for them, what I sold them for, grading them, getting them back. It was very isolated. And in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we don't have a huge collector base. And Little Rock, Arkansas is probably much different. Not much different. That's my guess. I don't know, but I'm guessing it's probably similar, especially for basketball, because in Louisiana, football rules with the Saints, and then football rules with LSU Tiger football, obviously, and then baseball would be next. And so basketball would be a very distant third. Don't even get me started about soccer. But so I went from just me and my keyboard on eBay to I found a Facebook group when I decided to collect the 1986 Fleer sets, and I started putting those together. And that's when I really branched out and realized, damn, there's a lot of people out there doing what I'm doing. This is really fun, and it's really helpful, to be quite honest with you. So joined a bunch of Facebook groups, and then kind of got acclimated with basketball card collecting with a little bit of a social aspect. Of course, there's nobody here locally that was doing what I was doing. And then from Facebook, I kept having people say, you need to get on Instagram. You need to get on Instagram. And I'm like, man, I'm old. I don't feel like learning another password and username, another interface. Facebook's got everything I need. Why do I need Instagram? And they're like, just trust me, get on Instagram. And man, when I got on Instagram, it changed the way I collect. It changed the amount of joy I derive from collecting. It amplified the efficiency of how I collect and obtaining the cards that I wanted. It helped me sell cards. And I really enjoyed the social aspect to it because I'm so isolated down here in Louisiana. we have a trade night once a month in New Orleans, and there might be 50 people there. When we have a show in Louisiana, it's 30 tables. That's it. That's all we have to work with. I've got to get in the car and drive to Dallas or drive to Atlanta for a show. And so I wanted to talk more about the hobby. And so that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to shell out a couple grand, get a laptop, and get some smart, young, tech-savvy person come in here, set it all up, and I'm just going to hit record. Like these thoughts and these ideas and this analytical approach to the hobby is in my brain already. I'm just going to get in early in the morning and hit the record button and start yelling at the screen, which is that's what I say, basically what I do. And just took it from there, man. It was exactly a year ago. I think my first video was maybe December 22nd or something, 2021. So it's been almost exactly 365 days since I started my channel. And it's kind of metamorphosized, Kurt, as I'm sure yours has and will. Just all sorts of different angles. NBA fantasy basketball, NBA basketball history, NBA prospecting, card collecting, card investing, PWCC auction recaps, mail days, box breaks, PSA grade reveals. There's something out there for everybody. If you like 61 Fleer, I'll have something for you on my channel. If you like, 2020 Crown Royale kabooms, I'll probably have something on my channel you're gonna like. In everything in between, I just kind of wanted to make sure I touched all corners of the hobby.
Absolutely. Well, I obviously feel you. I mean, I kind of started doing this, many months ago, just because I too just kind of wanted to talk about basketball cards and my love for collecting them and the history of them. And it led to me just enjoying talking to other people. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do that and just kind of focus on doing interviews and just talking to other people who love collecting and talk to them about what they like to collect and everything. And so, I feel you, where it's like, I feel like you can just go on and just talk, and there's just so many things you can talk about when it comes to this hobby, the history of it, what's happening currently in the hobby, where it's going to go forward in the future, even just talking about other people in the hobby. That seems to be the bread and butter for a lot of people's content, is talking about other people in the hobby or whatever. So yeah. So what are kind of the things you really enjoy about doing content about the hobby? What are some of your favorite things to talk about? What are your thoughts about what's going to happen down the road with your channel, and what you think you might focus on when it comes to this hobby in general?
Well, at some point, I better monetize this channel or my wife's going to be pissed off. So that's always my answer. She's like, damn, you're spending a lot of time, working on this and that. And I'm like, oh, don't worry. We're going to be millionaires one day. I'm just putting it off. Like, as long as I can string this out, I'm going to string it out, because I'm enjoying doing it for free, right? But one of the things I like about it, Kurt, is I learn a ton doing it. Like to put some of the videos together that I do, like a mail day, I'm not learning anything. I'm just sharing what I picked up. Like, some people like to watch mail days, so I throw it out there. But you'd be surprised how much you can learn about basketball card collecting and investing just from reading the comments, to the videos that I'm doing. I've really learned a lot. Like it's kind of, stair step, and it's incremental growth in my education. But when you take a look back at the last full year, man, I've learned a ton just from putting these videos together. I feel like it's making me a more well-rounded collector and investor. And that's one recurring theme that's interwoven through my channel, is that I'm not a collector channel. I'm not an investor channel. I want both, and the hobby needs both. And if everybody's honest with themselves and looks in the mirror, everybody's a little bit of both. I really believe that. Maybe towards one end of the spectrum over the other, collector versus investor, but I think everybody is lying when they say I'm purely a collector. I don't believe that. I think everybody wants to make sure they're buying cards for a fair price, and nobody wants their assets to go down, whether they're collecting them or investing them. Nobody wants their assets to go down,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fine for sure to have both mindsets. I know there are a lot of people out there that are annoyed with the whole, no, cards are not investments, no, you shouldn't consider cards investments and things of that nature. I don't think I think you can have both mindsets and still be pretty much a collector for the sake of collecting, but also you don't want to be collecting things that you think are going to be 50% less in value than what they currently are when you purchase them, especially if you're going to hold on to them for 15, 20 years. I think it's absolutely fine to be like, well, I still kind of want to make sure I'm getting into things that will appreciate over time. I mean, you can obviously collect what you love, and if you do love, junk wax stuff that isn't going to appreciate, or if you love Panini Prism based stuff that isn't going to appreciate, yeah, that's fine. Just try not to don't think of those things as investments. Think of those things as purely passion things to just have and just to have fun with. If you want, and just hopefully you didn't buy them at the peak of 2021.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now they're back to like, yeah, you can spend like $10-15 per card on a lot of those, and who cares, but yeah, if you're spending hundreds, if not thousands or $10,000s on things that you want to collect, I think it's also okay to be like, well, I also want to make sure this is going to like appreciate, so that I'm not going to spend $10,000 and it's going to be $100, 20 years from now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I did a video the other day, Kurt, and it was, you got to choose. I'll give you this hypothetical. You can either let the market dictate what your collection's worth 3 years from now, or you could push a magic button or take a magic pill, and every single card in your collection will be worth exactly the same 3 years from now. Which one would you prefer? And it was funny because all the comments were dead split. It was dead split in half. These people out there, the true collectors, were like, I just want it to be the exact same because I'm not in it for the money. And then the investors were like, let it ride, baby. Let's see what happens. If it goes down, it goes down. If it goes up, it goes up. So yeah, it was kind of funny to read people's comments. That was probably the most engagement I've ever received on any video I've ever done. And it was interesting. And I don't know the answer. I don't know what I would do. Because a good portion of my collection is for investment purposes, but the vast majority of it is for collector purposes because it's Jordan stuff that ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on when exactly those people bought their cards or their collections.
Yeah.
Like I'm still perfectly fine with a lot of prices because the value that I have in my cards, a lot of that comes from pre-COVID stuff. And so a lot of people who got stuff from that time period are still kind of happy, and they're like, yeah, we can pause where the market is right now. I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, they're up 300%. Of course.
Yeah. But if you bought your stuff last year or even like 8 months ago or 6 months ago, then yeah, you're probably like, you know what? Let me see where the market. Hopefully, the market will go back up on these cards 3 to 5 years from now, and see where it is at that point. And I still think, for the most part, especially if you're doing like really like in terms of investment stuff, if you're really smart about it, if you're really getting the rare stuff, a lot of the insert sets we talked about, the players we talked about, some of the vintage stuff we discussed, I think those things will still go back up in the next few years. I think LeBron stuff will go back up. I think Giannis will go back up, especially his rare rookie stuff and things of that nature. So I think for the most part, the market will go back up for people if you're patient with it. But I understand, I know a lot of people saw a lot of their money lose value in a lot of these cards these past few years. And so, there's a lot of people worried, but I think in the long term, I say, don't be too worried unless you bought a bunch of, Trey Lance, Baker Mayfield, Panini Prism based type of stuff at the wrong time,
Well, yeah, Kurt, the issue is all these people that bought in 2021, some of those people need that money out. Like they don't want to sell at, an 80% loss, but they need the money. And so we're seeing, cards. It's almost like just throwing cards onto a bonfire. Like people are just selling their cards for pennies on the dollar, not because they want to. They'd love to ride it out, but maybe they don't have the wherewithal financially to do that. And so I feel for those people that came in 2021, and it doesn't mean they're dumb people. I mean, all of us had the fever, man. Hell, if I was such a genius and I knew that this was going to happen in 2022 and 2023, I'd have sold 80% of my collection in 2021 and then just bought it back, you know?
Yeah.
But none of us knew the drop would be this abrupt and this precipitous on all cards. You know, we had an inkling, hey, that's a lot of Zion base prism. There's a whole lot of Doncic silver prism PSA 10s out there. That may be something to keep an eye on. But we didn't know rare Jordans were going to go down. We didn't know some rare vintage was going to go down. We didn't know this was going to happen to this extent. But we probably should have. You know, it's just like when you're caught up in the moment. It's like, you know, somebody offers you 10x what you paid for it, and you're like, I'm good. I'll wait till 15x. So,
Well, so back to your actual collection. Do you have any sort of an end game for your collection? Are there things that you'd be like, I feel like if I get certain types of cards or whatever, then I might be done, or it's just something that you'll probably wind up doing for the rest of your life, you think?
I think I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. I'll say that because I don't think I can get to the finish line on Jordan stuff. I just don't think it's possible.
And unless you're Nat Turner or somebody like that, yeah.
Well, he's drew his own finish line, right? Yeah, he is the finish line. I got to catch him to get to the finish line. But yeah, I mean, Kurt. I mean, look, some of these. I mean, you're talking about easy, you know, 8 figures worth of Jordan left that I need to get that I'm just never going to get to. So it's going to be like I think it's called Zeno's paradox, where if you're always getting halfway closer, you're always getting closer, but you're never getting there, right? And so you're always getting half the distance closer to the finish line. I'll never get anywhere remotely near I'll need to get on Jordan stuff. So I think it's a lifelong process. And I like to say, look, my Jordan cards I'm going to hold them for Cajun eternity, which is, we don't know when it is, but we know it's a really long time because you can't put a finger on it. So I call it Cajun eternity. So that's kind of what I'm focused on now, is growing. And I'm honestly, my perspective of 2023 is I think it's going to be a very fertile time period for me to pick up a lot of the Jordan cards that I never thought I'd have the opportunity to get before. Because not only are they lower in price, you're seeing them come to market more in 2022 and 2023 than you ordinarily would, because like we talked about, some people need that money right now. And so not to sound like a shark in the water, but their loss is going to be my gain. And I'm not alone. Obviously, there's a lot of us out there who collect Jordan who are thrilled right now that, you know, an Ultra Stars Gold was 100 grand and now it's 40, right? Because at 100 grand, it's not even on my radar. But at 40, I can move some pieces around and maybe make a run at that, you know, super rare, hard pack odds type card. So it just depends on perspective, Kurt. I think 2023 is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be more so the year of the collector than it is the year of the investor. And that's okay with me because, like I said, that's the majority of what I am, is probably a shade more collector than I am investor. So I'm excited for 2023. I really am. And just to make content. If it's this fun to make content in the middle of a hobby bloodbath, think how fun it's going to be when it does turn around and cards are actually starting to move up again, like they were in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, right? So hopefully this is the aberration and not the norm. But we'll just have to wait and see. So,
yeah. Well, I know you have a lot of your stuff still in your PWCC vault. And so what I might do, if you don't mind, is just edit in some of the images from your vaults, show people some of the stuff, especially people watching on YouTube, especially to see some of the things that you do have, some of the things that we discussed that you have. So, you know, and you do have a lot of incredible things, a lot of really rare Jordan inserts and parallels and things of that nature. And obviously you talked about Giannis and Kobe and Dame Lillard and all those guys that I'll show some here. So do you have anything? I know you talk a lot about this on your channel, and you've been talking a lot lately about collecting Jordan stuff. So in a nutshell, if you had to just tell somebody who's really wanting to go out and start collecting some of the really hard to find Jordan stuff, or anyone else, especially during this time period where, prices have gone down, but for a lot of those Jordan cards, that's still a lot of money for a lot of people, obviously. But so what would you tell people, just kind of in a couple minute nutshell, about what's the best thing, the best advice you can offer them to try and do that?
It's really funny because I actually just started a series on my channel, and it's a weekly series. I've got a friend named Zach who messaged me and said, I want to transition my collection into Jordan. He's like, what do I do? That was his question. And I was like, Zach, if you think I'm going to text you an answer to that question, bro, you got a lot coming. This is not going to work out. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't you call me tomorrow? I'm going to get you on the channel, and we're going to touch base every week. And you're going to ask question after question after question. You're going to show me what you buy and why you buy it. And any questions you have, you're welcome to message me about a particular card. But let's let the world see what it's like for someone coming into the Jordan world with no knowledge whatsoever about Michael Jordan card collecting, because I did it. I didn't know a damn thing, Kurt, about Jordan, except that 86 Fleer was the rookie card, or at least that's what I thought was a rookie card. So I had to figure it all out from YouTube and this and that. And so I was going to bring Zach in. He's like an apprentice, and he's asking questions, and we're soliciting answers in the comments from other Jordan collectors. So it's been really fun and really well received. I think the first video went over 1,000 in like a day, and then this last episode, number 2, is pushing 1,000 already. And so I think people are liking Zach coming in with all these questions that they've got about collecting not just Jordan, but really 90s cards in general. But I can answer your question in one sentence, and that is, if you want to start collecting Jordan, what should I do? The answer is 1,000 hours of research. You need to put in 1,000 hours, or you're going to make a very expensive mistake. So you can nibble, you can buy some little, $150, $250 cards here and there, but before you start buying whales, you should put in a great deal of research, because there's fakes. There's backdoor copies. There's cards that are misgraded. There's, unsavvy buyers could buy from a seller who doesn't even own the card. Or there's just a lot of pitfalls out there, which sometimes can be scary if you've not educated yourself and done the research on Jordan cards from the 90s. When there's that much money involved, there's going to be bad actors in the hobby that are trying to take advantage of altruistic buyers, and that's just a shame, but it's the way it is, man.
Yeah, and people have gotten really good with fakes over the years. Even if something is serial numbered, they know how to fake those serial numbers sometimes.
Kurt, it could be in a PSA and a BGS slab and be
fake. Exactly. Even PSA and BGS has a hard time detecting them. They have certainly graded, authenticated lots of inserts and other cards from that era that they shouldn't have. There's lots of blowout forums that are still out there on this topic, and a lot of great resources to go. And a great plug for your channel. Go catch Cajun Cardboard's YouTube channel and watch that series. I'm sure there's a lot of great information that you're giving that person who's getting into the Jordan collection. What's the series called again? Is it just called?
I think it's called Jordan. I think it's called Jordan Card Collecting. I just named it as generic as it could be. And look, it's just me. I'm not some genius. Like, I don't know more about Jordans than anybody else. I'm just trying to help my buddy, because he's doing exactly what I did 3 years ago, which is start from page 1, chapter 1, and figure it out. Yeah. And I wish there was a how to collect cards, treatise out there, but that doesn't exist. You've got to gather your information from like 50 different sources. And I'm sure it's the same for you collecting vintage stuff. There's not one site that you can go to and say, all right, I'm going to figure out how to collect 61 Fleer. No, you've got to speak to people. You've got to watch YouTube videos. You've got to read articles. You've got to check blowout. You've got to look at the auctions from 12 different auction houses and eBay. There's just no one way to absorb that information efficiently. And that's one sad thing about our hobby, is it's a huge barrier to entry. Like, educating yourself in this hobby is difficult because you've got to extract information from so many different sources, and not all those sources are good sources. That's another thing, is like, you got to think about some of the people that you're taking information from. It's not always, they don't always have your best interest in mind, unfortunately. So that's why I never try to tell anybody what to buy. I just tell people what I'm buying. And then you can do it if you want, or you can not do it if you want. But I rarely say, you need to go buy this. This is a good investment. I don't think anybody's ever heard me say that on my channel. So.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop. Yeah, I agree with all that. Is there anything else that you want to plug other than your YouTube and your Instagram? Any other, anything else you're out there on that people can find you?
Easy to. I mean, I'm Cajun Cardboard on Facebook, Cajun Cardboard on Instagram, Cajun Cardboard on YouTube. It's that simple. And then I'm on the Luca Nation Network once or twice a week, talking with Andrew Goldberg and doing the PWCC weekly auction recaps. And so, that's a great way to stay up on current prices. It's basketball only for me because that's all I care about. So, I do the top 100 basketball card sales from the weekly auction the night before, and so I'm trying to get that information out to people early Monday morning, so it's still fresh and they can drink their coffee and see what cards sold for what in the top 100. Those are always well received. Everybody likes to look at big cards and see what they sold for and whether they went up or down. I mean, who doesn't like that, right? So that's it, man. Not much else out there. I'm an open book. If anybody ever wants to message me about anything, Jordan card collecting, 90s card collecting, if I don't have an answer, I'll never guess. I'll never guess at an answer. I either know the answer or I'll put you in touch with somebody who can get you the answer. But that's the other thing about me is you'll find that I'm pretty transparent and straightforward. So, for better or worse.
Well, thank you so much once again, Brian. I really appreciate you taking time to do this interview. Thank you so much.
Yep. Stay in touch. I'll keep my eyes open for some 61 Fleer obscure autograph cards. I don't think that my tentacles probably stretch as far as yours do on that set, but if for whatever reason in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I stumble across one, I will definitely send them your way.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Of course.